Don Brown says the Da Vinci Code was published in 2003, and it instantly became a pop culture phenomenon. So much so that more than 20 years later, we are still talking about it. It spawned 2 blockbuster movies and countless articles, documentaries, and YouTube videos discussing its claims. But what impact did the Da Vinci Code have on modern Christianity? That's what we're going to be looking at today. And before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed over the last few weeks. We're rapidly approaching a significant milestone, so if you haven't already and you enjoy these videos, do consider subscribing because it really does help out. Okay, so if you've never read the book or seen the movie, here's a brief synopsis. The story follows symbologist Robert Langdon and cryptologist Sophie Neveu as they race across Europe trying to decipher hidden clues left by the legendary painter Leonardo da Vinci. In the process, they uncover a secret society known as the Priory of Sion, whose members have been protecting the bloodline of Jesus Christ for over 2,000 years. According to this fictional tale, Mary Magdalene, who some Christians believe, was Jesus' wife, fled to France with Jesus' son after his crucifixion, and they successfully hid their lineage. From the rest of the world until the present day, Brown claimed that he based this theory on the work of French author Backlash, who first proposed this idea in the early 20th century. However, scholars quickly pointed out that this was not only incorrect, but also irrelevant, because Balakhov's work was not based on historical evidence, but rather wishful thinking. It's important to note that this is all fiction. Don Brown himself has stated that the Da Vinci Code should not be taken as historical fact. But even so, the implications of the novel were far-reaching. Millions of people who had no prior interest in Christianity or history suddenly found themselves asking questions like, was Mary Magdalene really the wife of Jesus? Did Jesus really have a son who lives on today? And what was the Priory of Sion? As a result, churches and other religious organizations began receiving phone calls from confused parishioners demanding answers. Pastors had to create sermons addressing the novel. Brown became one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people. Part of the reason that this book had such an impact is that it combined religion, conspiracy, and mystery. This is a potent mix because it appeals to our natural curiosity about the unknown, while also tapping into our desire for certainty. Unfortunately, this book wasn't very accurate. But that didn't stop millions of people from embracing its claims as truth. So how exactly did it change modern Christianity? Well, in some ways, it made it more popular. Here's what I mean. Prior to the release of the Da Vinci Code, discussions about faith were often seen as taboo or controversial. But the popularity of this book forced mainstream media outlets to cover stories related to religion. Suddenly, everyone was talking about Mary Magdalene and the historical Jesus, and this increased attention led many people to become more interested in Christianity. Some scholars even argue that the book sparked what they called a Magdalenic turn, where women began to take a greater interest in biblical topics that had traditionally been ignored or downplayed. However, this rise in interest was not always positive. In fact, the opposite could often be true. You see, when someone has a genuine interest in something, they want to learn from reliable sources. But unfortunately, many Christians use this opportunity to push a particular agenda. Instead of providing helpful information, some religious leaders seized on the opportunity to condemn the book and anyone who supported it. They labeled anyone who questioned traditional teachings as heretics or worse, accused them of being possessed by demons. This heavy-handed approach turned many people away from organized religion and pushed them into the arms of alternative spirituality. But it's not just megachurches that suffered. Mainstream Christianity was also affected. Scholars were frustrated by the lack of seriousness with which they were treated. Here's an example. Before the Da Vinci Code, most historians agreed that there was no solid evidence that Jesus was married, so they simply concluded that it didn't happen. However, in the wake of the book's release, some scholars felt pressure to prove a negative. So they spent years combing through ancient texts and artifacts, looking for any mention of Jesus' wife. But they came up empty-handed. Frustrated by the futility of their task, some scholars abandoned biblical studies altogether. This backlash is what eventually led Dan Brown to write a sequel, where he basically tells everyone to stop taking his book so seriously. In more recent years, the rise of alternative spirituality has become a major threat to Christianity, according to research conducted by the Public Religion Research Institute. Nearly half of millennials and 64% of Zoomers believe in astrology. Additionally, 29% of millennials and 40% of Zoomers report having personally used astrology for guidance in the last year. Furthermore, a survey conducted by Pew Research Center found that 38% of Americans are interested in magic and witchcraft. This surge in popularity can be attributed to several factors: the decline of religious authority, the rise of social media, and the appeal of a more personalized approach to spirituality. What we're seeing today is a rejection of traditional religious structures in favor of individual exploration. People are no longer satisfied with blindly accepting what they are told by religious leaders. Instead, they want to explore their own spirituality and determine what works best for them. This trend has been further fueled by the legalization of marijuana, which has led to a renewed interest in topics such as magic and witchcraft. Many Christians, however, view this development with skepticism, seeing it as a dangerous distraction from what they perceive as the true path. They worry that people are becoming too comfortable with mixing spirituality with recreational drug use, and are concerned about the potential consequences of this blurring of lines. This tension between traditional religious beliefs and the growing popularity of alternative spirituality is likely to continue, as younger generations become more open-minded and less bound by traditional religious norms. Okay, so what about the Da Vinci Code? What impact did that have on modern Christianity? It certainly played a role in shaping the spiritual landscape of today. When the book was released, it caused quite a stir among religious communities, with some viewing it as a blasphemous attack on Christian teachings, while others saw it as an opportunity to engage with non-believers and skeptics. For some Christians, the novel's suggestion that Jesus was married and had a child was seen as a direct challenge to their faith. They believed that it undermined the divinity of Jesus and the authenticity of the Bible. The book's portrayal of Christianity in a negative light contributed to a sense of fear and suspicion towards those who questioned traditional beliefs. Religious leaders condemned the book and urged their followers to reject its claims. However, for others, the Da Vinci Code presented an opportunity to engage with those who were curious about Christianity but skeptical of its teachings. Some Christians saw the book's popularity as a chance to reach out to non-believers and address their concerns. They believed that by engaging with skeptics and answering their questions thoughtfully, they could help bridge the gap between faith and reason. Furthermore, the book's release sparked a wider conversation about the role of religion in society. Critics of Christianity accused religious people of being intolerant and close-minded, while defenders of the faith argued that they were simply trying to preserve their beliefs in an increasingly secular world. This debate continues to be relevant today as tensions between religious and non-religious communities continue to rise. Overall, the Da Vinci Code's impact on modern Christianity is complex and multifaceted. While some Christians saw the book as a threat to their faith, others viewed it as an opportunity for dialogue and understanding. The novel's popularity highlighted the growing divide between religious and non-religious communities and the need for both sides to engage in respectful and meaningful conversations about their differences. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts, comments, or critiques, feel free to share them below. I'll see you next time.